Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Special Encounters USA. With all that's been going on in the area of UFOs, we have been really hard pressed to even keep up with all of the information. And one of the strategies that I've taken basically is to kind of let things shake out. And then once things slow down a little bit, my intent was to jump in and start commenting and explaining some of the things that are happening. But that just doesn't seem to happen. It seems like every day and every week, especially with the new Trump administration and this UFO buzz, whatever you want to call it, flap that has been happening in New Jersey, in America, and around the world, that things just are not going to slow down enough for me to get things all together and then put some kind of, make some kind of sense to it. So today we're going to start off and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the background of the UFO, and then we're going to be talking about the information that has come out lately, and specifically we're going to be talking about this I keep saying Corey Barber. I'm always afraid to say that, but we're going to be talking about Jacob Barber, who says that he picked up an actual egg-shaped UFO and deposited it somewhere because he was working for a contractor that was collecting alien craft and craft of all different kinds. And he worked, as he said, downrange, and he went and picked up these craft in his retrieval business. So he had a lot of information to put out, and if you haven't seen it yet, it is on News Nation if you want to watch the full interview. But before we go into what Jacob Barber has to say, I really want to give you a background because at Encounters USA we do aliens, Bigfoot, and Dogman, and we are basically a graduate level course in these topics. So we don't just talk about, what happens and then we leave it alone. We actually see if the information that is coming out really complies with and syncs with some of the background information that we already have. Now, I've talked about this before, and so I'm just going to have to go back into it. I've done a podcast on what is called the Roswell alien, the interview with a woman or a nurse called Matilda Macelroy. And this occurred in 1947 after the Roswell crash, supposedly. Now, you can be skeptical about what went on and what transpired during the interview, because I was certainly skeptical when I listened to it. And I know that some of the information that the supposed alien put out, some of it was not historically accurate. Now, is that because we've not been given the correct information, or because the alien just didn't understand or get the correct information? Either way, there was enough in there about the alien civilization, where it came from, what it's doing, and how it ties into this information that we're getting from Jacob Barber, and the information that you're going to see in my upcoming documentary, and that is called ECETI Ranch Stargate, because I went down to ECETI Ranch in Washington State and filmed a documentary. I interviewed the owner, James Gilliland, and that documentary, if it's not out now when you watch this, it will be coming out shortly. Now, I've also done a few other documentaries, And you can see those on Tubi, Fandango, any of your Amazon, any of your favorite streaming services. And those are called Cascade Bigfoot Blood Mystery 1, 2, 3, and 4. And those really have to do with a Bigfoot and alien encounter that I had, which I had to bring in remote viewers to find out where the blood mystery even came from and what the purpose of the blood mystery was. But I highly recommend you watch these videos because they really give you some really updated information and really tie in Bigfoot and aliens that seem to be either cooperating or working in the presence of each other. So, with that, I also want to encourage you, if you like this kind of information, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to my Encounters USA channel on YouTube. I'm also on Rumble, and you can go to encountersusa.com where I have all of my old podcasts, and I have interviews. I have all kinds of information about aliens, Bigfoot, and Dogman. And I've talked to some of the leading people in the world about Bigfoot, aliens, and Dogman. And I think you'll find the channel or the website quite intriguing. And you can also get this cool merchandise and a bunch of other stuff on encountersusa.com. So let's get into the actual background on this egg situation. Now, let's go to the alien interview first, because there are some things that an alien who called herself Aril said to this Matilda Macelroy, and they spoke via mental telepathy. They never spoke like you and I would speak to each other, but the alien used mental telepathy and told Matilda Macelroy, a 24-year-old nurse, who was the only person that this alien said they would have any contact with, and whose information or questions were the only ones that she would answer. She refused to answer questions from what we now know as the Majestic 12 people like Roscoe Hollencotter, and the other people that were involved and dubbed the Majestic 12. So they were there, and they were actually watching the whole interview through the one-way glass, and the alien was completely aware that they were there the whole time. So what did the alien tell Matilda Macelroy? The alien told Matilda Macelroy that there are two competing interests that are in our galaxy, and probably, well, actually in 1/3. At one point they said that they are actually in 1/3 of the universe. And this interest, this group of extraterrestrials, I don't know how we would actually classify them, but they refer to themselves as the domain. And they are competing with another group of interests, and they call them the Old Empire. And these are just earthly terms that they made up. I don't know what they would actually call themselves, but the gist of the conversation was that the domain they're the new kids on the block, relatively new, maybe a few million years old, but they are expanding their influence throughout the universe. And as they are expanding their influence throughout the universe, they are kicking out the Old Empire, or what they call the Old Empire. Now, let me explain. Aril, who this is what she calls herself, is one of our classic gray aliens. One thing that we're going to see as we're talking to people later on, like Jacob Barber and other people, is that the gray aliens are using what Aril in the conversation with Nurse Matilda Macelroy called, they're using she calls a dull body. It's basically like a meat. It's an organism that was created so that the individual itself does not have to go out and travel through the galaxy and go out and explore, because what they do is they just use their mental telepathy to control the dull body. And according to the alien, the craft that they are using are not controlled by the alien dull body. They are actually controlled by what Matilda Macelroy was told by the aliens are called is-bees. And an is-bee is us. An is-bee is this alien with its projection into the dull body, and what you might even want to call an avatar. Now, what is an is-bee? According to the alien, Aril, an is-bee is a spirit, and I am an is-bee, you are an is-bee, and what it means is that the spirit is because it chooses to be, according to this alien. So throughout the universe, there are many life forms, many forms of aliens, but they all have one thing in common, and that they are all share this is-be, which what a Christian person or a religious person would call the spirit. And the alien makes clear to Aril or to Matilda Macelroy that the body is nothing, and that the spirit and its continuation throughout what it says are millions, and Aril the alien talks about remembering back millions and millions of years through all of these different lives. And what she says, and what you're going to hear in talks with people like this guy David Icke, and if you watch Whitney or Dr. Brown, Courtney Brown, and his remote viewers, they also touch on this idea that the is-bees on Earth are being held in a prison planet. And we are not, once we die, and we are supposed to, be able to go anywhere we want and throughout the universe. But the fact is, according to the alien, according to David Icke, according to Courtney Brown, and a bunch of other people, and this is coming out now as we're understanding more about the aliens themselves, when we die, we are basically sucked into what is called an electronic trap. And according to the alien Aril, we are zapped with billions and billions of volts. And the reason for this is because they don't want our spirit, our soul, our very essence of life, to remember what happened in the life before. So you die, you get sucked into this electrocution process, and then you're sent right back. And this happens again and again and again and again. And one thing that the alien points out, and one thing that you might even say, aha, well, maybe that explains these people that remember past lives. Well, maybe that process was not complete. And the question then would be, is there any way to escape this process? Is there any way for us is-bees to avoid the electrocution process and remember everything that happened before and escape? And according to the alien, there is not, but I think that we could look into maybe certain aspects of Christianity, Hinduism, and Buddhism, where they seem to all seek a heaven, a nirvana, or enlightenment, or some kind of higher being. And I don't know if this means that if you get to go to heaven, then you basically relinquish your earthly presence and you get to escape. I don't know that that's the case because in this conversation with Matilda Macelroy, she never said, this alien who calls herself Aril, never said that it was possible to escape this. And the only way to escape this, according to them, is for the people of the earth to revolt and to throw this stuff out. And the only way to do this would be to, first of all, understand what's going on, get united, and then fight against this old empire prison system. So those are the things that that Matilda Macelroy was told by this alien, and the alien talks about a lot about world history, and some of the things that she says are correct and some of the things that are not. But she also goes into the connection between the domain, her group of people, and their history on the earth. And according to this alien, in 8000 BC, the domain first showed up on the earth. And she goes into a long, drawn-out explanation that they're not interested in the Earth. The Earth is a high-gravity situation. It's very difficult for their craft to land and take off here because we have such a high-gravity situation. We are just a remote outpost on the edge of the galaxy, of the Milky Way galaxy, and the Earth is basically just a good place to jump off from. It's not a good place to visit. The aliens believe that, and I'm saying this because this information, which supposedly came out in 1947, keeps showing up in other people talking about aliens, remote viewing, contact with other extraterrestrials. These themes keep showing up. So it's not like this is a one-off thing and wow, what an interesting story, because they keep showing up. Now, in 8000 BC, they showed up and basically took a mountaintop off of an area in the Himalayas. And they did not know that the old empire was here. And so the old empire found them out. They attacked the base, and they took thousands of these ISBs from the domain. They took them prisoner, and they put them into this perpetual state of reincarnation onto the earth, so that these people were trapped. And according to the Aril, the alien, the domain came looking for them. And they found out that they had been put into this cycle, and so the domain is trying to and has been trying to get their people back since 8000 BC. Now, over the years, and this possibly explains why you hear about Vimanas in the Vedic literature of the Hindus, which talk about aerial combat between spaceships. The first aerial combat came when the domain realized that the old empire had taken their people and stuck them into this trap. Then there have been situations like in 1536, I believe it was, in Württemberg, Germany, where people describe seeing this huge battle in the air between UFOs. So the information that she talks about is actually verifiable, at least, if you think that the Vedas are not some kind of fiction, or the Württemberg UFO battle was also a work of fiction. I say Württemberg, I hope I'm saying that right. I don't think it's Nuremberg. I think it's Württemberg in Germany. So that is pretty much your background. According to Aril, the alien, the ISB, They are not interested in the Earth right now, but at some point they will come. And this is, she says, maybe in 5,000 years, they will come and they will take possession of the Earth and all of its resources, everything here, they will claim for themselves. So that is the background on what I'm going to start talking about now with some of the other contact that we've had with extraterrestrials and what people supposedly say that these people are doing. So now let's talk about a situation with Jake Barber. Now, if you haven't seen the Jake Barber interview, it's on News Nation. It's with Ross Colter, and it's really fascinating. And let me explain that the first whistleblowers, David Grolsch, Elizondo, these people that were supposedly working for the Pentagon, they have not, as Jacob Barber explains, they've not had any contact or such close contact as he has had with the aliens or with the alien craft. Now, according to Jacob Barber, he was a contractor who had a business, and I'm sure he was working at Area 51 or that other place in Utah. But his job was to go out downrange. They would test fly certain vehicles, some of it man-made technology, some of it could have been hybrid technology, and he says that some of it was definitely alien. Now, what they concentrate on in this interview is the egg. Now, the egg is an interesting phenomena in itself, and the funny thing about it, as they bring up in the interview with Jacob Barber, is that the egg was what Mork from Work came in when he came to Earth in the 1970s sitcom, and how odd, everybody thought that was such a joke. An egg? What do you mean an egg? But that egg actually has been seen by other people, and specifically, it was seen by Jacob Barber because he was tasked to go downrange and pick one of these objects up. So, before I go too far into Jacob Barber's claims in his interview, there are some questions that I have that I would really like to ask somebody like Jacob Barber or people that have had contact or claim to have worked with these craft. Jacob Barber says that the egg was it was just sitting there, and it did not have a heat signature, and it was just sitting there, and he was tasked to go pick it up. So what he did is he basically flew his helicopter out, picked it up, and took it back to where he was going. Here's your object, got his pay, and end of story. But that was not the only craft that he picked up. Jacob Barber also talks about another craft that he picked up, and that's what they call the octagon or something like that. And the octagon was a disc-shaped craft that had 8 octagonal sections. So they have 2 different kinds of craft now. They have the egg-shaped craft, and then they have this more traditional saucer-shaped looking craft. Now, the egg-shaped craft, and my first question is, how do you know it was a craft? He didn't see it land. He didn't see it fly around. It was just there, and he picked it up. And Jacob Barber also claims that he saw it because what they do is they drop a line down, they sling load it onto what he called a pumpkin, I guess, and they airlift it out on a 150-foot line. So when he went out to pick it up, it was just sitting there. He didn't see how it got there. He didn't see if there was a pilot involved. He didn't see anything other than that he just went to pick up an egg. So rationally, it could have just been an egg laying there. And any skeptic, and we really do need to be skeptical when it comes to these claims, could say, well, yeah, that thing was just laying there. And according to his story, he looked down and he saw it. He was wearing night vision goggles because it was dark. He looked down and saw the egg. All right. So I have one thing that I'm not sure about, and that is, how would he have seen this egg or any object underneath his helicopter? Because you can't see through the floor of a helicopter. I don't think we have plexiglass bottoms on the helicopter to see. Now, I know that he was flying a UH-1, and I know that the front of the UH-1 or Huey has bubbles. They have bubble windows in the front of the craft, and maybe that was what he was looking through. But if he's looking down while he's picking it up, well, actually seeing it would not have been possible. So according to Jake Barber, he picked this thing up and took it back. The next time he was tasked to pick up one of these, UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call it, he picked up one of these octagon things. And this octagon thing had a very serious effect on him, in that the egg was basically dormant. But the octagon shaped craft, according to Jake Barber, began to communicate with him. It began to interact with him. He said it was a very feminine voice, very feminine presence, and it was one of the strongest presences that he's ever heard before. Now, let me go back, and he said it was the most wonderful experience of his life. Now, maybe he's had a crappy life or something, and maybe, picking up a strange spaceship is the coolest thing some people have ever done. But he said this thing touched him physically, it communicated with him, and he was changed by it. And that really led him to really want to seek disclosure and to tell people what he was actually doing with these craft. Now, let's go back to our story about Aril the alien that spoke with the nurse Matilda Macelroy. Allegedly, the alien said, a feminine presence, the alien said that, though, remember the domain people that came here and then they got captured by the old empire and they couldn't leave? Well, there were a couple of other things that they said, and that is that the domain people are here. And at the end of the interview, whatever, the alien revealed to Matilda Macelroy the only reason she would talk to her is because she's one of these reincarnated beings that was captured back 8,000 years ago, and that they are basically connected. And so, according to Matilda Macelroy, they maintained kind of a friendship via telekinesis, whatever, throughout the rest of Matilda Macelroy's life. Now, that, it may sound strange to you, but again, we have this idea, and that Jacob Barber is talking about, is that he has a feminine presence communicating with him. So my question is, why? Why Jacob Barber? Now, Jacob Barber did not see if there was anybody in the craft. We don't know if there was anybody in the craft or not. As I said before, the craft are operated remote controlled, and basically, according to the alien in the Macelroy interview, the craft are created and operate on a frequency that exactly matches the mental frequency of the ISB that is controlling it. So, and these are just crazy questions, but could there have been a pilot in it? Or if not, could that craft have actually been communicating with Jacob Barber through this mental telepathy from an alien that's somewhere off, who knows where, in some other galaxy, but is actually controlling this craft. Now you're going to think that might sound crazy, and if you do, then I suggest you click off the podcast. But let me explain a couple of other things that were talked about by this alien. Now, the alien says that they use, remember, there's what's called the Oort cloud, which is a bunch of debris between Jupiter and Mars. Remember Star Wars, and they blew up this planet, right? Well, there is all this debris between Mars and Jupiter. And according to Aril the alien, the domain uses that. There's a planetoid or some debris that they use because it doesn't have any gravity, and that instead of using the Earth, they use this debris field that they can get in and out of a lot easier than using Earth's gravity. So that is, why the aliens supposedly don't come to Earth just because of the gravity thing. So this probably is starting to sound really crazy to you, but the fact of the matter is a lot of this stuff is coming out more and more every day. Now, do not think that there is just one race of beings. There are many races of beings, and therefore there are many races or types of craft that they would move around with. If you look in my or read my book, Deceptions of the Ages, Mormons, Freemasons, and Extraterrestrials, you will see not only the physics of how some of these craft work, but you will also see accounts in the Bible, in other scriptures that talk about contact with other beings. And in my book, I talk about the idea of the EBE, or the extraterrestrial biological entity, and I make the point that they call them extraterrestrial biological entities because there must be some extraterrestrial entities that are not biological, and those entities would come in and out of other dimensions. So the world and the universe and everything is really getting opened up now. Then we've talked about the Matilda Macelroy thing, and now we've talked about the Jacob Barber situation. So there is the issue now of they keep talking about disclosure. Are we really going to have disclosure? Because as we saw when these UFOs started showing up in New Jersey, the first thing the government did was say that they don't know what they are. They have no idea what they are, but they don't pose a threat. Now, if you read my book, Deceptions of the Ages, you'll know that back in 1966, they did a study and they spent a lot of money talking to all these people and told them to basically debunk UFOs. And their final conclusion was not that the UFOs don't exist, but that they don't pose a threat. That was their conclusion. They don't pose a threat. So basically nothing to see here. Those things are just out there. Don't worry about it. And so that was the first line that the government was taking when these UFOs just started showing up in November. And I just want to also point out that I've done a video about Courtney Brown's remote viewing folks who came out and said that the aliens are tired of hiding, and they want people to know who they are, what they're doing here, and they are going to start showing themselves. And within the next week of them airing this podcast, or their, and this is on the Farsight Institute, you can see it on YouTube, but within a week of that, the drones started showing up en masse. And they were not like, and I say drones, I shouldn't say that. The UFOs started showing up, and the government started calling them drones. And they said, same as the Condon report back in the 1960s, which is in my book, Deceptions of the Ages, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Now, there were a few people back on Majestic 12 that did not agree that we should keep this idea of an alien presence, that we should keep it hushed up. One of them was Admiral Forrestal, and he ended up doing a swan dive out of one of the upper rooms in the hospital in Washington, D.C., in the Naval Hospital in Washington, D.C. They killed him because he wanted disclosure. John F. Kennedy wanted disclosure, and they killed him. And what they said was that there is nothing to see here, and people who claimed otherwise, they had very bad experiences, and ultimately those experiences led to their death. So now we heard President Trump say that he, before he got elected, said he was going to disclose this. Then when he got elected, everybody said, well, okay, disclose it. What's the story? And they came out and said, oh, Carolyn Leavitt, his press secretary, said, oh, yes. Well, those are FAA-approved drones.
The drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
And nobody in the world bought that. So a few weeks ago, it was a few weeks ago, Representative James Comer and Representative Anna Paulina Luna came out and said that they were going to have a secrets committee. They were going to start investigating the JFK assassination. They were going to investigate Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy assassination. And along with all these other mysteries, like 9/11, they were going to release or have hearings on what is the truth behind UFOs, submerged objects, USOs, and what they call UAPs.
But today, we stand at the dawn of a new era where the light of truth begins to shine through. A few weeks ago, President Donald Trump made a historic announcement. With the stroke of a pen, he committed to declassifying the files concerning the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a decision not just monumental, but pivotal. Together with the help of the White House, our intelligence allies, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, we will be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files.
And they said that no matter what the truth is, it's coming out. So whether that's actually going to happen, and I did a video on that, I'll put a link to it, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot of things that go into this, and I've talked about this before. Now, in 1952, supposedly, our president, Eisenhower, signed what is called the Greada Treaty. And in the Greada Treaty, they signed a treaty that said that the aliens would give us this technology. Now remember, I'm not sure who these aliens are, because there are what Courtney Brown calls the good aliens, who want us to be happy and get along with each other and love each other. And there are the bad aliens. And the bad aliens are the guys who gave the Nazis technology back in World War II and were one of the reasons that von Braun's buddy Obert said that we got all the technology because we had help from outside. And I can't remember the exact thing, so don't quote me exactly, but he said we had help. And, you know, if you look back into Maria Orsic and the psychics of the Tool Society in the 1920s, I think that's what he's alluding to. So here we have good aliens, bad aliens. Well, guess who we signed a treaty with? They wanted this weapons technology, and the bad aliens said, you can have it, but we're going to go and we're going to grab a couple of your people. We're going to do some genetic stuff, so they won't remember anything. So we're just going to go grab a few people, and that's our end of the treaty. You can have what you want. We can have what we want. Now, before we go any farther, let me explain why the good aliens are good aliens and the bad aliens are bad aliens. And if you listen to Linda Moulton Howe, back starting with what we call the Nordics, back on Centurion, whatever, wherever they come from, Alpha Centauri, I'm sorry, they had basically a war. And they had a war with a reptilian civilization. And why did they have a war with the reptilian civilization? And you can hear Linda Moulton Howe talk about this in more detail if you want to. But the gist of it is this. The Nordics were using the reptilians, they were using their DNA to create little robot beings. And the reptilians were very, very upset about that, and they basically went to war with these Nordics. Now, some of the Nordics said, well, actually, we don't want to be like you guys. We're going to fight with the reptilians. So if you look at my movie Cascade, Bigfoot, Blood Mystery, and you hear one of the psychics that I employed, she's talking about these aliens are Nordics that are observing me while I'm having this blood showing up in my tent. And she says this alien is he's hostile. He's hostile to me. They don't like humans. And putting two and two together, the aliens, the reptilians started a war with the Nordics because of the DNA issue. And if you watch the Prometheus series, when the Aliens series start, and you start off with Prometheus, the creator race that created us and put us on the earth to basically be what they were using for the reptilians for. They just wanted little worker bees to go around and do their bidding for them. They wanted us to mine their metal, and once they were done with us, they wanted us killed. And I don't know why they would want us killed, except that I would guess that they used their own DNA to create us, and then the reptilians have come along. Remember what I said, that we're just going to abduct a few of your people? The reptilians came along and said, here are some of these people have some of the Nordic DNA, so we're going to abduct them, and we're going to create our own hybrid race and our own little workers. So Does this all? I know this sounds crazy. If you're into ufology, you might, this might ring a bell with you. If you're not, this probably sounds completely insane. But this is what people say. So, just logically thinking, if the reptilians were pissed off at the Nordics about stealing their DNA, and then they can come down here and get DNA from us that is similar to the Nordic DNA, then why wouldn't they? And just for evidence, I'll just look at the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, where Betty and Barney Hill claimed that they saw like blonde people, they saw reptilians, and they saw people in Nazi uniforms. Take that for what it's worth, take it for what you will, believe it or don't believe it. But if you're trying to put all of this stuff together, and what I'm trying to do is explain to you where would disclosure actually lead? Well, it actually would lead, if all of this stuff is true, to two civilizations, not civilizations, but groups of entities. And, I hate to keep going back to Star Wars, but even this alien said that, this Matilda Macelroy's friend Aril said that the first people that came out here in the old kingdom, or the old empire, were miners. They were tradesmen. They were looking for minerals. They were businessmen. They were out trying to harvest resources. And where do we see that? Well, we see it in the Clone War stuff on Star Wars about how the Empire is trying to control these people like Lando Calrissian, who are out there in the galaxy trying to mine minerals and make a profit off of it. And they want everybody, the old Empire wants everybody under their thumb. So, or vice versa, or the Domain wants everybody under their thumb. So, as crazy as it sounds, this is where our disclosure could possibly end up, if it ever gets that way. Because even from what you hear me talking about, this is, and without any proof except for a couple people like Jake Barber, remote viewers like Courtney Brown, people that have been abducted and been aboard these craft and said they've seen hybrid human beings before. They've seen reptilians. They've seen these praying mantis types. When they remote viewed the building of the pyramids, they talk about praying mantis that were using the little worker drone people to build the pyramids. So where would disclosure actually lead? And before we hit that button, let's go back to this Greada Treaty. In the treaty, they specifically told Eisenhower or the representatives of our government that in no way can you ever reveal that we're here. There is no way if you do that, you're in violation of the treaty and we'll screw you up. And so that is why you get a Condon report in the 1960s. There's nothing to see here. There's no threat, so don't worry about it. And as much as they could, they try to tell people there are no aliens. There is no extraterrestrial life. And they use this crazy idea that, civilization would fall apart, when every other movie in the 1950s was about aliens and flying saucers. Now we have this idea that the U.S. Congress is going to look into this information and disclose it. I am skeptical because, number one, above everything else, we made a treaty with an agreement, with a civilization or group of civilizations that is billions of years ahead of us in technology. and could basically wipe us out and turn us to dust, turn us to frogs, turn us to whatever they want in just a matter of seconds. So are we really going to piss those people off and say, oh, well, we're going to violate the treaty and tell everybody, oh, yeah, well, this is how it is? And even if you were to do that, what would be the end result? I mean, if you heard everything that you've heard me say right now, if you heard all of this stuff just fresh out of the blue, didn't know anything about UFOs, never heard about Benny or Barney Hill or Roswell or any of this Jake Barber or any of this other stuff, most people would go, this is just too crazy. This is, you can't go from nothing to having all of this, basically Star Wars litany of information and all of this, basically a belief system about two competing entities that are vying to control the entire universe. That's probably just a little too much to throw on people's plate, especially when people on Earth really are just concerned about having a job, raising a family, and making sure their kids are okay and able to, support themselves later on in life. Most people just don't have don't care. They don't have, I don't want to say the ability to understand, but with the ability, you'd have to have the desire to understand it. And I just don't think that there's that many people that would have that kind of capability. I am skeptical. Now, if this committee comes out and says that, yes, this is what is going on, is it really what is going on? I mean, are they really going to tell us the truth? Or is it going to be another Condon report where, there's sure this phenomena out there, but there's nothing to see really, and it's not going to bother us, so just leave it alone. I don't know. You can tell me what you think by leaving your comments in the description. But for me, I'm very skeptical that they would come out and say anything and violate that treaty, because that could bring the ultimate wrath upon us. So we really, this is Encounters USA. And as I said, we're kind of like a graduate level podcast, website, etc. And these are things that, people who follow my channel, people who follow my website, they understand a lot of what's going on. But for the run-of-the-mill people, to ask them to accept this kind of information, I don't think they really know. A lot of people really can really fathom what it is that they're wishing for. So the last thing that I would have to say about all of this stuff is going back to this idea of us being a prison planet. Now, not to put down anybody that, that lives here on the planet, including myself, but according to this Aril, and there was another remote viewer, and his name is John Vivanco. John Vivanco remote viewed an alien, and I think it was the Roswell alien, and it was really upset because it basically said, why am I here? This is the planet of the apes. These people are killers, they're vicious, they are homicidal, they're ignorant, they're stupid, and no alien in their right mind would want to be here. And this is John Vivanco saying this about remote viewing a Roswell alien, and it's exactly what this Aril alien said to Matilda Macelroy. So, what would be the ultimate goal or what would be the ultimate outcome of disclosure? Well, if you were to actually have disclosure and that information came out to be the information that I've just given you, well, what is the next step? Because remember, when I started off talking about this idea of the is-be. You are because you want to be. Unfortunately, when you die, this planet is a prison planet, and this is according to remote viewers, the alien, David Icke, many people are saying that you can't leave. You will never be able to leave. So if we have disclosure and they tell people, yeah, well, there's these aliens and they have this electronic system set up so that when you die, they grab your spirit, electrocute the hell out of you, and then send you back to another body. How is that going to sit with people? I mean, that you don't get to go to heaven? Where is God in all of this? How do we fit into that? Are you really going to come out and tell people this? And maybe that was why they didn't want to disclose the alien presence in the first place, because we, according to the aliens, are trapped, that we cannot get out. And the only way we will ever get out is when, and even Aril the alien, Matilda Macelroy's friend, said they don't know how to disconnect this thing, that this thing is in place. They have no idea how to disconnect it. At some point, when they want to take over the earth and its resources, they may try to do that. I don't know what, it's not really in their interest to do it, but especially because what this alien said is that our is-be presence, our being, our spirit, that we are collected from all over the galaxy, that we are the worst of the worst. And maybe not the galaxy, maybe the whole universe, but we are the worst of the worst. We have, because they bring their people who revolt against the government, they bring people who won't pay their taxes, they bring people who are lazy, they bring criminals, rapists, murderers, and basically the most worthless, vicious scum you'd see, like maybe at a Democrat Party convention. And they dropped them off on the earth. And they also brought artists, they brought writers, they brought creatives, they brought people that are very, very smart and very creative. Why? Because there's no use for anybody in a civilization that's billions of years old where everything's already been created. So that's why I'm very skeptical, because I don't know if people could understand. And then if you were to get them to understand what exactly this is, the only thing that would be able to save us spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, is if we were to say, okay, if this is the deal, then let's fight. Let's fight them. Let's get rid of this electronic net that we're being held in. Let's destroy the net so that when we die, we can go where we want to go and do what we want to do. But you see how things are on the planet, and if you have the biggest rapscallions of the universe being thrown in here so we don't cause problems, then that might be a real hard thing to do. So I'm going to just give you the links in the description to the alien interview. I'm going to give you links to Jake Barber's interview on News Nation. I'm going to give you a link to Courtney Brown's, Dr. Courtney Brown's Farsight Institute. And I'm going to give you a link to my book, Deceptions of the Ages, so that you can see for yourself. And I know it's a long book. It's almost 500 pages, but Deceptions of the Ages really gives you the background on what's going on. And once you read that, it's much easier to understand not only our history, but this alleged history of the universe, the old empire, the dominion or the domain, and this conflict that has happened between them. That is our podcast for today, and I really want to explain to people that I'm working on a few different projects right now. I'm working on a project. Well, I can't talk too much about it, but I am working on a new documentary, and actually a few documentaries, and so it's going to be my postings on this YouTube channel, and my podcasts are going to probably be a little few and far between, at least for the next probably 3 or 4 months, 5 months, until I can get my other documentaries finished and submit them to my partners at Bayview Entertainment for release. So if you have comments, if you have questions, go ahead and leave them in the comment section of the video on YouTube, and this podcast will be available on all of your favorite podcast networks as well. So there you go. I just want to encourage you to, if you like this or whatever, please like and subscribe to my channel, like the video, and share it with people that you know. So with that, now that we've had really what I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that is to explain to you what's really going on and go into the historical background, explain to you when people make these claims that these are not the first times that these things have been said. And I want to explain to you how these things, as far as I understand it, fit together. So I hope you appreciate that. And if you do, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and be on the lookout for the Cascade Bigfoot Blood Mystery Series. Be on the lookout for ECETI Ranch, the Stargate, the portal opens, because I went down and interviewed James Gilliland at ECETI Ranch. And one thing that he said that was really intriguing to me was that he at one time claimed to me that he had been visited by an 8-foot-tall Anunnaki woman. And, you know, I thought it was somewhat humorous that she was visiting him to explain that, well, the Anunnaki are not bad, and we're really getting a bum rap because of these other, these other entities that may be Anunnaki or not. And I thought, well, what does the Anunnaki not have their own publicist? Can't they get some PR person to come out here? Why do they have to come and tell James Gilliland that we're not bad people? What do you think about disclosure? Do you really think that we could handle this kind of information? Do you agree with this kind of information? I mean, it's really out there, isn't it? But in my lifetime of researching all of this stuff, this seems to be a theme that keeps coming back and forth, and this idea of the empire and the domain and all that. That shows up in Star Wars, and so many things that we see as far as UFOs, Bigfoot, and even Dogman show up in our popular culture. Why is that? Well, we ask these questions, and many like it on Encounters USA. So if you are looking for answers to these questions, if you are looking for aliens, or if you're looking for Dogman or Bigfoot, just remember what we always say at Encounters USA, and that is, watch your back. And we will see you next time.